Welcome back, ladies and gentlemen, and this video is one I've thought about long and hard, but I've decided that I've got to make it. I've seen a couple of videos touching this subject, and the first one was by Mandy at Mandy's Cuddle Nursery, and the other was made by Lynn at My Bella Blessing, and the subject is bullying. So I want to tell you a story about myself. I've got Charlie here with me today because he looks most like my son, and I thought he'd be perfect to make this video with me. When I was at school, I don't want it to go on too long. I'm going to try and make it as short as possible. I've got some bullet points in front of me to help me remember. But while I was at school, I was bullied quite badly by a group of girls that lived locally in my street. I went from a person who was a proper tomboy, really confident, to somebody who, when I went to secondary school, wouldn't leave the house. My mum realised the change immediately, but didn't realise what was going on, and obviously I would not talk about it. So I stopped going out. I remember once I went to a school disco, a local school disco, and on the way home from the disco, I was badly beaten up by the bullies. Now, my parents were out that night, and I'd arranged to go to stay with a family friend, and I'd got cuts and bruises, and I lied and said I'd fallen over. So that was my experience with school bullies, and that's where the scars started. Now, when I left school, I went to college to study as a nursery nurse, and my confidence started to return, but I knew I wasn't right. When I went into pubs with my friends, my hands used to shake, trying to have a drink. In any social situation, I wasn't happy, but I covered it all up, never mentioned it to anybody. Going to the town on a Saturday, I started having panic attacks in Boots, one shop, because it was so big and so bright. I used to pick things up, and if there was a queue, I would be that scared, I would run out of the shop and put the item back. So that was another experience, but again, I just brushed it off and wouldn't talk about it. So anyway, I started travelling. My one happiness was travelling abroad, and that's where I met my husband while on holiday, on a holiday romance. And after several trips there, I ended up marrying him. And he turned out to be a violent bully as well. After having my son, returning to England with him, and I had my son, he moved us to London. So I was totally cut off from my family and didn't see them, only occasionally when they could come to London. And I've since found out that men like this are able to spot a vulnerable person, which is what I was at that time. Now, to cut a long story short, on one night, I managed to crawl out of that flat, badly beaten. Luckily, there was an all-night cafe over the road, and I went into the cafe and they phoned for the ambulance. Now, while my husband was in prison because of this, he said that he'd found God and that he repented on everything he'd done, and he was a changed man. So they say they teach you forgiveness. I started visiting him with my son, and yes, I had him back. I gave up an absolute fortune in compensation for what I'd suffered because I had this man back in my life. And as you can guess, it didn't work out. The fact that he'd found God and repented meant nothing at all. He was the same person, and it ended in divorce. Now, I was offered therapy for this on the NHS, but they gave me as much as they could, and they said after so many sessions that it wasn't enough, that I was still full of anger, and but they couldn't offer me any more sessions, so I was left like that. Now, I was also put on suicide watch because that's where I was at that time, and they wanted to admit me to a home for people with mental trauma, but I would not go in because I thought once I got, you've seen the films where they sit there in chairs rocking on medication. I thought if I was in there I'd never come out, and I'd got my son, so I refused to go in. I brought up my son by myself. I had to go into a council flat because that's all I could afford on my own with a child. And you can guess, my neighbour, can you believe it, was a bully. And he made our life absolute hell. He used to play, when I used to come in after a work shift, he would put a piece of music on the beginning of a programme, and he would play it over and over and over and over and over again, just to annoy me. When I'd walked in at 9 o'clock at night after a long day at work. Yeah, you couldn't, I mean, I've thought about writing a book about this. It's just, you can't even imagine. So with all this, I ended up at work starting to have panic attacks, which got worse and worse, and in the end I ended up leaving work. I couldn't work anymore because I was just terrified of everything and everyone. Thank goodness I met Darren. My mum took me on a day trip with the over 60s club, and can you believe he was on the same coach? So I met Darren, and he has completely changed my life around. Am I fully healed now? No. Eating meals in restaurants, I have to sit up a corner with my back to everybody. I'm totally terrified. Certain situations I can't do without him with me. I've got no friends. I don't mix with people. I try to avoid people as much as possible. It's all right on YouTube because you can't see me, and so I've got no friends. I've got Darren and I've got my family, and I can't cope with confrontation. And when I started on YouTube, my son told me turn off the comments because there's people out there that aren't very nice. But so far, because my channel's only small, I've not experienced the bullying on YouTube or the trolls. So I hope it stays that way. But what I wanted to say was, am I in a situation to forgive the bullies? No, definitely not. They have ruined my entire life. And that's the point I wanted to make. Even though you have, you know, come out and said that you forgive, you are sorry that you did this, which is an extremely brave thing to do, to come out and say that. But in my situation personally, do I forgive people who bully people? No. So this is the video I wanted to make today. It needed to be addressed, and I just wanted to put my side of the story to you. It's said now, and this is my happy place, and it will be. I just needed to say my side of the story as far as bullying is concerned. So thank you all for sticking with this video. It's not easy to listen to, and thank you for watching, and I'll see you all again and with a much happier video. So until next time, bye for now.